Okay, hi y'all. We are here to record a video and go over Solano number 2. This is in case you were absent. This is also in case maybe you missed a part of the lesson, or let's say you're just still unsure about what's going on and you need extra help. So the title of this diary entry is number 2, Hunger. It should be glued into your notebook. Remember, you're getting a notebook grade for the 6 weeks, so it's really important that you keep up with everything that's going on. Your learning targets are: I can determine the meaning of a grade level vocabulary. I can describe how the use of figurative language achieves specific purposes, and I can make inferences to use evidence to support understanding. So we're going to be doing these three things. Here's how we're going to annotate. As we read, we're going to underline words and phrases that show you Solano's character qualities, and then we're going to highlight them in the correct color. So if you haven't done so yet, here's the following colors you need. And you might need to pause the video at this time so you get these colors. But dialogue is going to be orange, actions are going to be yellow, observations are going to be green, and thoughts are going to be in blue. This is a kind of a what we call the steal method, and it's simply looking at these specific things that the character is doing or saying or thinking to try to come up with who the character is. And so that's a practice that we're going to practice throughout the school year because it's really crucial, because we define characters on based on what they do and based on what they say and maybe even what they're thinking. Same thing goes for you as students. Like, we look at the things that you are doing or saying, and then we characterize you. So that's a very normal human thing, but we need to think about it in a reading and writing context. Okay, let's get started. Again, if you haven't got these, I would pause the video and make sure you have these colors. Okay, spring 1529, age 15. Hunger is a wolf that constantly gnaws at us. Every morning I wake with an empty stomach and an insatiable hunger. Today, as we marched, my legs trembled so badly. I thought they might snap like twigs. A soldier beside me collapsed. We tried to lift him, but he only shook his head, too weak to rise. I fear he will not last the night. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try to find things that we can highlight based off of those colors. So I'm going to help you with this. It says, today as we marched, my legs trembled so badly. So that's an action. And then it even says, I thought. So if it's I thought, it's going to be a blue. They might snap like twigs. Okay. A soldier beside me collapsed. We tried to lift him. So he's trying to lift his fellow soldier, but he only shook his head, too weak to rise. I fear he will not last the night. So this is kind of an observation here, but he shook his head, too weak to rise. And it says, I fear he will not last the night. Okay? So this is something that I always do because it's going to help you on another activity that we do towards the end of the 6 weeks. But from this, I would say Solano is helpful. He doesn't just keep on marching and not help his friends. He's helpful, okay? So let's keep on reading. The problem is always the same: food. We scour the land for anything edible. When lucky, we pry open oysters or dig bitter roots from roots from the ground. Sometimes we catch fish, though often the river outsmarts us. A few times native people have given us beans or nuts, but other times they retreat into their villages, watching us with suspicion. I cannot blame them. We arrive ragged and desperate, our hands reaching for what little they have. So here is some actions that they're doing. So it says, we scour the land for anything edible. We pry open oysters or dig bitter roots from the ground. Sometimes we catch fish, though often the river outsmarts us. A few times, native people have given us beans or nuts, but other times they retreat into the villages, watching us with suspicion. So he's observing the natives being suspicious of his tribe. It says, I cannot blame them. So that really shows Solano and who he is as a character, because if I'm hungry and people are not sharing their food, I don't necessarily going to be super understanding. So you could either say on this one, he's empathetic. He gets why the natives aren't sharing, even though it's a difficult time for his troops. Okay, let's keep on reading. I have learned to eat what was once seemed unthinkable. Roasted insects crunch between my teeth. Acorns ground into paste taste bitter but fill my stomach. Even cactus pads, spines burned away, have become a strange kind of bread. My mother would faint if she saw me eat these things, but out here, pride matters less than survival. So we've got, I've learned to eat what once seemed unthinkable. Okay. And I got pride matters less than survival. So his action is he's eating these things that are just we couldn't even imagine eating. But he thinks pride matters less than survival. So this kind of shows that Solano is having to adapt. He's adaptable, right? Um, Instead of focusing on what's comfortable to him, he's focusing on, okay, what's going to get me through this experience. Let's keep on reading. My body has changed too. Once soft, my hands are now rough with cracks across my knuckles. My back aches from chopping wood and dragging supplies. I feel myself hardening into something different, something not quite the boy who left Spain. So this is a one big observation. So I'm going to start with, and this is observations he has of himself. Once soft, my hands are now rough with cracks across my knuckles. My back aches from chopping wood and dragging supplies. I feel myself hardening into something different, something not quite the boy who left Spain. Okay? I would say he's this section makes him self-aware, right? He notices that he's changed. He notices that he's gotten stronger, but he's kind of in survival mode, right? The last paragraph says, I used to dream of gold. Now I dream of only bread. So this is kind of a funny thought that Solano has. This just kind of truly shows how hungry he is. So that's all we're doing when we're reading this. And you're probably thinking, oh, it's all these colors. What does that even do? Well, you're really trying to break down all the different aspects of Solano. What is he saying? Which he didn't say anything in this particular journal. But what is he doing? What is he looking at? And then also, what are his thoughts? And then we're trying to figure out who Solano is as a person from these things. So that's a practice that we're going to continue to do in these journal entries. Let's go ahead and go over to this side over here. Okay, so question number 1. This is the one that's Latin roots, so we're focusing on vocabulary. Can you look at a word and look at the prefixes and suffixes and the roots used in that word and figure out the definition? So the sentence that they use, it says, read this sentence. Every morning I wake with an empty stomach and an insatiable hunger. And it says the word insatiable comes from the Latin roots enough and not. So if we just put these two together, we can say insatiable basically means not enough. So if you're hungry and you don't have enough, that's not good, right? So I always, and I learned this from Miss McKee, when I'm doing these things, I try to kind of break it down to positive or negative. And this is definitely a negative vocabulary word, right? And it says, what does insatiable mean? So let's see if we can just eliminate answer choices based off of it being negative or positive. So this one says easily filled. To me, that's positive. If you're easily filled, then that means that you're not hungry. So this is not the correct answer. Never satisfied. This is negative. So this might be the correct answer. Careful and cautious. Cautious and careful, I would say those are positive things, because if you're those things, then you're gonna be less likely to make mistakes. So I would say that is not our correct answer choice. And empty inside, negative. So we've got 2 answer choices that it could possibly be. So let's try to put these in and see if they make sense. Awake with an empty stomach and never satisfied hunger. So that goes with not enough, like never satisfied is never enough. So that's a great answer choice. So that so far is my front runner, is answer choice B. And then empty inside, okay? Not enough, and empty inside hunger. I think this is one of those tricky questions where it's really hard to come up with the correct answer because these 2 look so good. But if I'm basing my answer on the prefixes and the Latin roots, and I'm also looking at the fact that it means not enough, I would say the correct answer choice is going to be B. Okay, let's move on to question number 2, figurative language. Sentence 1 says, hunger is a wolf that constantly gnaws at us. What kind of figurative language is this? So remember, metaphors and similes are both comparing two things. Simile uses like or as. Metaphor doesn't use like or as. Personification, remember, it was giving human traits to non-human things. And then we've got onomatopoeia. That is the word imitates what it sounds like. So I know it's not a simile because there's no like or as present in this. So we know that. We know it's not onomatopoeia because there's no word that really sounds like what it's imitating. The only one that I could say is nah, but that's not how they're using it. They're not going like the wolf gnaws. Like, it's not the main focus of the figurative language. And then we've got personification, giving human traits to non-human things. Well, in this one, they're comparing hunger to a wolf. They're not comparing hunger to a person. That would be personification. It's not called wolfication. So we know that's the incorrect answer. So we know that this is going to be a metaphor. And so now we've got to figure out what this means. And so hunger is a wolf. So if I was saying that, if I said I'm so hungry like a wolf, right? That's kind of a negative figurative language. So let's see if we can break this down just by positive negatives. It shows they were playful and joking. Well, that's a positive thing, and I don't think hunger being that extreme is positive. It demonstrates how their hunger felt constant and painful. Well, that's negative, and that sounds pretty good, but let's make sure that there's not a better answer choice. It shows the reader that food was easy to find. That's a positive, so we're going to eliminate that. And it reveals how careless the men were with supplies. This is a negative. But if I'm looking at the context of the actual character trait, the figurative language, it says hunger is a wolf, right? And so I don't think it's referencing anything about the men being careless with their supplies. They might have been, and that's why they're hungry, but that's not what it's referencing in this actual sentence. So that is the correct answer choice. So that's B. I hope this video helped you. If you need any help, remember, come to tutorials. But we will continue to do these. And again, you're going to have to eventually do these on your own where you're all by yourself. Have a good day, guys.